line is right next to them. DB right here next to them. Hey, everybody understand that? Let's go. Get to work. Get to work. Hey, get a break. Hey, hard work on three.
Hard work on me. Hard work on three. 1, 2, 3. Hard.
Get out of here. Let's get out of here.
Hi, I'm Katie Philpott, Preschool Intervention Specialist at Rosa Parks Early Learning Center. My position is to educate all preschoolers who come through our doors into our classroom and service students on an IEP, Individualized Education Plan, and it's a way that all students can access the curriculum and education. The kids are vibrant and excited every day to come to school, and they're learning literally how to school, and that's so important. DPS has lots of opportunities for growth. They give you ample professional development hours, which you need for your degree to continue on teaching. It's a great place where you're gonna meet all kinds of people. You're gonna meet every kind of student there is, and there's gonna be challenges for sure. But when you handle those challenges and overcome them, you'll feel so proud of yourself. I enjoy the people I work with. They are some of the best human beings you will find on this planet. I enjoy how there is a preschool program for families who want access to that. That's very important to the K-12 curriculum. It's a great place to be, and if you look around the buildings, you will see active learning, you will see bulletin boards with the learning on it, so you know that there are great things happening in the classrooms. Every child who enters our classroom feels that their learning is important and that they are valued and they are important. So being the one to do that is like a warm, fuzzy hug.
Hi everyone, today I'm going to talk to you about bus safety. Every day, thousands of Dayton Public School students ride the bus to and from school, and it's important to know how to stay safe. First things first, Make sure to get to your bus stop at least 10 minutes early, and while you're waiting, stand in a safe spot away from the road. Once the bus arrives, go straight to your seat so the bus can start moving again. And remember, while you're on the bus, stay seated and keep the aisles and exits clear. Just like in a classroom, listen to the driver and follow their instructions. This includes no foul language, no sticking your arms or head out the windows, and no eating or drinking on the bus. Lastly, make sure you only get off the bus at your assigned stop, and be sure to walk home safely. Let's all work together to follow these rules and keep our bus rides safe for everyone. Thanks for listening, and stay safe, DPS.
She can share. Tell her to share. See what we've done.
You got me together.
Okay. Fine. You don't want one? Okay, yeah.
Thank you. I was not going to run a meeting. You know, that would make, I'd have to do it if I had to do that. I really wouldn't like this stuff.
Been fine.
I don't even know what he does. I mean, it'd be like, pull things
Gonna
up.
say call to order.
He should be
We'll say the
training me.
pledge.
As his vice president, he should be training me. That's how, we'll use that angle.
I agree.
Good to see you.
What's that?
Just realized.
Good evening. I'd like to call this June 18th business meeting to order. Madam Treasurer, may I have a roll call?
President Smith,
Present.
Ms. Wick,
Present.
Dr. Goodwin,
Here.
Dr. Bailey,
Here.
Mr. Lacy,
Here.
Mr. Walker,
Present.
Ms. Reinhardt.
Present.
7 present.
Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. All right, Dr. Lawrence, could you get us going this evening for our presentations?
Absolutely, President Smith. Let's kick it off with the Ohio State Auditor's Award of Distinction. Joe Braden, come on up, and Madam Treasurer, congrats in advance.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. It is great to be here again, keyword again, that to present the Auditor State Award from Ohio Auditor State Keith Faber to the Dayton City School District. This award puts the Dayton City School District in a very select group. For 3 years now, I've came here every single year and presented this award. And the Auditor of State's office audits nearly 6,000 entities. and less than 4% of those entities are eligible for this award. This award is presented to local governments and school districts upon the completion of a financial audit that meet the following criteria of a clean audit. I want to read through the criteria here real quick so everybody in the audience will know what it took to make this happen from your staff and the school district here. The entity must file a financial report with the Auditor State's Office by the statutory due date without extension on a GAAP accounting basis and prepare an annual comprehensive financial report. The report must not contain any findings for recoveries, any material citations, any findings for recovery, material weaknesses, significant deficiencies, or any uniform guidance findings or question costs. The entity's management letter must not contain any comments related to any ethics referrals, any question costs, any lack of timely annual finance report submissions, any bank reconciliation issues, a failure to obtain a timely single audit, any findings for recoveries, or any public meetings or any public records issues. And the entity shall have no other financial or any other type concerns. This award represents the hard work of all your school employees here at the Dayton City School District and the financial staff who make an effort every day to attain accounting excellence. I want to recognize all of the board members here for a fantastic job that you've done. The superintendent has done a great job of watching over every dollar here at the Dayton City School District. And Hewitt, if you'd like to step down here, I would like to specifically recognize your treasurer, Hewitt Abraha, for her outstanding leadership, her outstanding professionalism, and her exceptional commitment to financial integrity. Congratulations, Hewitt. On behalf of Ohio Auditor State Keith Faber, I would like to present the Dayton City School District with the Ohio Auditor State Award with distinction.
I'd like to ask the board to come down so we can take a shot with Madam Treasurer.
Everybody look here. 3, 2, 1.
All right, our next presentation, I'd ask the Chief of Athletics to come up. Sports, Spring Sports City and State Champs.
Good evening. Thank you, Dr. Lawrence, President Smith, board members, for allowing us to come back again. But just want to publicly apologize to this group for some oversight on missing them last week. So We have today the results from our OSHA Middle School State Meet. First, I'd like to welcome up our first
Chief
place.
Jones, you know what? We should have just stayed down there. That was my fault.
Yeah,
We should have just stayed. We're gonna come on back down.
come on
and-
down.
and-
Come on down.
Yeah.
While they're getting ready, if that 4x2 state champion, if y'all can start coming up. We can just start it. So this is exciting. We actually have state champion on a middle school level. So the 4x2 relay, we have Nia Poole, Khalees Mayberry, Jayla Wilson, and London Evans. Let's give it up one more time for the state champions for the 4x2 relay.
Okay. Everybody look here. 3, 2, 1. Perfect.
All right, thanks, ladies. Nia, if you can stay up, Nia Poole, the rest of you guys can join your families. Nia Poole also was, she got second place in the girls 400. So let's give it up for Nia Poole. She also finished 19th in the 200-meter hurdle, so she was doing her thing.
Okay. Right here. 3, 2, 1. Perfect.
And then the last one, we have Nehemiah Poole, who finished 4th place in the boys 200-meter hurdles.
Look right here, everybody. 3, 2, 1. Perfect. Thank you.
All right, let's give these middle school state winners another hand of applause. Thank you so much.
All right, President Smith, our next special presentation is transportation, our North-South Zones presentation. I see you, Latoya, out here supporting, Uniqua. Look at my folks out there. Come on up. Dr. Jones, Business Manager, Mr. Anderson, Senior Executive Director of Transportation, and Mindy Clark, Director of Accountability and Assessment.
Okay, good evening. First, we want to thank Board President Will Smith, other esteemed members of the school board. Special thanks to Dr. Lawrence. We appreciate this opportunity to share with you the North-South Zone Transportation Plan. I know that there have been questions swirling around, not only in the district, but the community. And so this is an opportunity to share with you exactly what this is and what this means to the families of DPS. Now, I'll kind of wait until the presentation is placed on the screen there. There we go. Thank you. Now we can go to the next slide. Okay, so first things first, I do believe that going over a little bit about the history of quadrants in DPS is necessary, okay? So essentially, if you can imagine a Cartesian grid, 4 quadrants, the quadrants were developed to foster community schools, students going to community schools close to where they live and play, okay? But more importantly for transportation, what it did was limit drivers from going all over the city. They stayed pretty much within their quadrant, okay? And so, so reduced the number of routes and drivers that were needed, and we do believe that this was created in 2010 under Lori Ward, Superintendent Lori Ward.
Good evening. Some of the benefits of transitioning to zones will be alleviate transportation out of quadrants. That's why, as Dr. Jones just mentioned, it would keep the buses more centered, north-south versus going from the one quad all the way across the city. So that would alleviate that. More buses to support moving a student, school to school with possible increase in enrollment. So what we're saying there is as we believe the enrollment will increase for DPS, and we'll have more buses available to transport those students because they won't be going from between the 4 different quads and across the city. Next, this plan will incentivize the return to DPS school of charter schools, potentially private schools, parochial schools, et cetera. So we think that plan, it kind of simplifies transportation to some degree, will make it easier and incentivize parents to return students to the Dayton Public Schools. Next, giving parents and families more choice in schools for their children. So very shortly here, Ms. Clark will kind of give a demo of what that means, but not only will it simplify transportation, but it also gives parents a choice of selecting schools in the north or the south versus I live in the north, live in one quadrant, but I can't go to school, have my students go to school in one quadrant, or I will have to transport them. So we'll give you an example of that here very shortly. A long-term projection is more charter students and families will return to DPS. That's what our goal is, to use this north-south to simplify things and make it easier for students to return.
Okay. Yeah, just to clear one thing up, they won't have a choice of whether they want to choose north or south. The people who live in the north zone will go to the schools in the north zone, and the people who live in the south zone will go to the schools in the south zone. The choice comes in it being more options of schools in that zone now, as opposed to the quadrants, and just a small choice of schools. So that's what giving the parents and the families more choice comes from. And the next slide.
Thank you. Next slide. Next slide is a little slow. There we go. Possible expected inconveniences. Accommodating last-minute registration. So even today, when we get those, and this may continue with the north-south routes, it kind of throws things out of kilter. It means our routing team has a rush to set up transportation, route the students, but it also could cause issues at the school. So we really are asking parents and guardians to, as quickly as possible, register your students for bus transportation. And that will allow, again, the routing team to efficiently route students, possibly longer routes. We don't quite know yet. We have a goal of keeping the students on the bus a certain amount of time, but we're not sure yet. But our routing team,
Less than an hour. We want
that's
to
an
keep
hour.
on the bus an hour or less. That's the minimum.
Yep. Thank you. Let's see, the next slide is, how was transportation involved in this process? So we met with the team back here, Ms. Clark, Uniqua, Chief Jones, Chief Dooley, a whole host of people, OEC, but Miss Goins' team. But the overarching theme was collaboration. We really had several meetings, discussions, even with Ms. Kincaid's group, PIO, by email. We involved everyone, our routing team, our dispatchers, make sure we're all getting a good look at this to try and project any issues that it may cause, et cetera, and how we can get off to a great start to the next school year. So again, collaborative decision-making, both chiefs were involved, the academics team, OEC, student enrollment, which is Student Enrollment Center, certainly transportation. Mr. Gray, Mr. Calhoun were deeply involved. Our routers like Ms. Ware here, Ms. Bratchett, and also Ms. Henderson. Equity, Ms. Goins' team, and the accountability team were also involved. So we involved the entire district, certainly with Dr. Lawrence, the cabinet, you name it. It wasn't just 2 or 3 folks or 2 or 3 departments developing this plan.
So one of the things that we did while developing this plan was we looked at the number of students in each zone by grade level, where they live, to really look at, do we have enough classrooms in this zone for this grade level of student? Do we have enough school buildings? All of those kinds of things to ensure that everyone had a place and to try and make sure that things were balanced so that students had a school, families had a place to call home. And we wanted to make sure that we really looked at where do kids and families live and what school's closest to them, to really make sure that it was what's best for that student and that family. And so additionally, we've had some PD with drivers, but we are really going to actually emphasize this before route pick and then prior to the school year again as well. So student assignment ramifications. We've communicated already via Parent Square and social media. Changes are being currently made based on parent requests within the zone they live in. And then transportation changes based on changes in student assignment. So as parents are making those changes, then their transportation changes as well. So this is the old quadrant map, just so that you kind of get an idea. And I know up here on the screen it's really blurry. Hopefully it's not on your smaller devices. But this is the old quadrant map. And then next slide. If you go to the new zone map, I know the line is a little squiggly, but it is actually intentional to make sure that we have enough schools to serve students in each area. Next slide.
Thank you. This is a listing of the schools that are in each zone. So starting with the north, the elementary schools are Belhaven, Fairview, Kaiser, Kemp, and Valerie. Middle schools are E.J. Brown and Wright Brothers. For the south zone, elementary schools are Cleveland, Eastmont, Edison, Horace Mann, Louise Troy, Roosevelt, Ruskin, and Westwood. Middle schools for the south, Belmont and Wagaman. And lastly, the specialty schools, Charity Adams, International School, Rosa Parks, Rivers Edge, and Stivers Schools for the Arts. Next slide.
So as stated earlier, the team was pretty intentional about working with multiple stakeholders. We did a campaign with PIO. We sent messaging out via Parent Square email. Now, the feedback that we've received, while it's not objective, quantitative, right now is anecdotal, but the anecdotal data that we're receiving is positive. And I wanted to go back to something that was stated earlier in terms of selecting a school outside of your zone. So the north-south band, okay? If you look closely, students will be able to go to elementaries in that north quadrant. If they wanted to go to an elementary school in the south quadrant, the parents would more than likely have to provide their own transportation. Yep, go back about, yep, yeah. And that's not clear here. I'm sure you can see on your presentations what schools exist in that north and south quadrant, but you can see that school choice has been expanded, okay? Parents will have more choice. in terms of where their children go, especially amongst that K-8 band.
Next slide. All right, so one of the things that we have actually right now on our DPS website is the address lookup map. This has been updated to the zones. Do you mind doing a demonstration for us? Thank you. So if you go to and use that link, you can enter any address. We're going to use 136 South Ludlow as an address. And it'll pull up your address. And then it zooms in really, really closely. And so you have to zoom out just a little bit. Nope, one more. Yep. And it begins to show you all the schools that are in your zone and in close proximity to your address. And so this is helpful as parents and families look to see what schools are in their zone as well as what schools are in their local neighborhoods. And this is accessible on the DPS website. Or you can use the link from the presentation. Can you go back to the presentation, please? There you go. So additionally, the bus rider registration form to ensure that you get transportation for your students is due by July 8th and is linked in this form. And you can pop back over there, Ms. Karen. This is also available on the DPS website. This is to ensure that transportation has your student routed correctly. And if your student's currently transported, you don't need to fill it out again.
All right, so at this time, we'll entertain any questions you may have about the North-South plan.
Okay, I appreciate you all for this information. Thank you, everybody that worked on this work. Usually I like to kick it off, but I do have one that I wanted to start with before I hand it off to the rest of the board. And it may be an OEC thing as well in there. So with this, just making sure that, are we also making sure that we indicate to parents that those who have specialized transportations through IEP, that they still have that ability to access the school of their choice or the school where their child is attending?
Yes, sir, most definitely.
Okay, appreciate that. I have a couple, but I'll kick it off to other board members first. I'll go to Dr. Bailey, then Dr. Goodwin.
Yeah, so you've got buses going north, right? You got a team going north, you got a team going south. Who's going to be doing the specialty schools?
So when we do our routes, we route the students who need special transportation, like any type of accommodations, like a wheelchair lift or anything. They ride a certain bus. Those drivers pick that route. So like when they go to multiple schools, all of their schools will be special transportation routes. All of them are the same at the high schools. We always transported special education high schoolers. So those drivers will stay on those buses, and then the students who don't require special transportation, they'll go on the regular buses.
Okay. And then my other question is, how does this help us with the charter schools and all other schools that we have to transport? How does this make us do better?
Well, it should make it a little bit easier to accommodate all of that, because we no longer will have buses in like a small area. They'll be kind of spread out a little bit more. So it'll help the buses get to where they need to be. It shouldn't affect the charters any different than what they've already been transported. Okay.
And if I can piggyback that statement, part of the reason why I believe we've lost so many students to charters is because of choice, you know? And so we believe by expanding this choice, you know, maybe the parent doesn't want their child at this elementary school in their neighborhood. Maybe they believe that at Kemp, you know, maybe they have family there. You know, they know some teachers over there, the principal, that their child will be best suited in that building. And so we're expanding choice just like the charter schools have been for so many years.
Okay. That's all I got for right now.
Dr. Gowan.
Yes. Okay, so let me make sure I understand this correct. So if I'm in the North region, say I go to Fairview, or I live in the Fairview area, and I want to go to Kemp, you'll transport me to Kemp now?
You can go to Kemp.
Okay. So from Fairview to Kemp along is 8.7 miles. Our policy says we transport 1.5 miles because we changed that in December. So are you guys requesting that we change our policy to extend that one? Or are we still within the 1.5 mile piece of, like, how does that make sense if I live 8 miles away? I mean, if we reduce down to only doing 1.5 miles?
Yeah, we're not requesting that the 1.5 miles be changed, that limit. To piggyback on what Dr. Jones said, with the north-south zones, we believe we'll be able to lower, mitigate some of the outer quadrant, which concerns from parents that may have driven some of them to charter schools. So we're trying to minimize that by going from 4 quads to north-south. But no, we're not asking that the 1.5 mile limit be changed at all.
So maybe I'm not understanding, because that's more than 1.5 miles of distance.
Okay, so the
So is it
1.5 miles is for you to be able to get a bus.
Okay, so then-
Minimum, yes.
My
That's
second
not-
question for you guys.
Okay.
So looking at the population of the elementary here, in our Kaiser, Rivers Edge, and Ruskins are our highest schools in population on the east side of, not the chart you guys have. How do we not lose kids at our lower population schools because they want to be in the higher population schools? Like, how do you get that balance? Because for example, like Westwood, Roosevelt, Louise Troy's are on our lower scales here. Kaiser, Ruskin, Rivers Edge, higher scale. Fairview, higher scale. Now, like, how is that balance looking? How are we going to, like, kind of smooth that piece, like Bellhaven and that one with this one?
So now with the zones being a lot more schools in the area, we will try to, as student enrollment, because now you don't have just the options of 2 or 3 schools in a quadrant. Now, since the zones are opened up, we're able to talk to parents and give different details about these other schools that may have lower numbers to possibly make these other schools larger or make the seat counts more available.
I know that's the goal, but if it doesn't go that way, what's the plan?
There's caps. So we have caps for every grade level. And with those caps are,
I'm short. That's all right. So each cap, or each grade level has a cap, especially in that K-6 band, based on staffing in buildings, and looking at what's available in the surrounding area. And so one of the things that we have done, even up to today, is run a report looking at each grade level, and looking at, okay, do we have enough first grade classrooms? Do we have enough kindergarten classrooms in each zone, that we will continue to do periodically to make sure that we are staying staffed appropriately for each zone.
Okay. I don't think you guys are answering my question, though, how we, like, prevent, because right now we're overcrowded at some schools, and I'm just trying to figure out, like, how this helps us try to get some of our
So when a school when a grade level is
Kaiser.
capped.
Let's go with
right.
Kaiser. Kaiser stays overcrowded.
So let's take Kaiser. So let's say Kaiser's 5th grade is capped, and so they have met the limit, that their classrooms can hold, that their teachers can contractually teach, then we would, anyone else who wants to enroll at Kaiser, we would then recommend other school buildings because Kaiser no longer has room to accept those students.
Okay. That's all I have.
All right, Ms. Wick.
Thank you guys for the presentation, appreciate the thoughtful work. You indicated that it simplifies things. I'd like to hear a little, I'm assuming that means less movement for buses, makes it easier, kind of straight lines things, but I'd like to hear a little bit about that.
One of the examples I can give, being a router, we got an influx of students like being placed out of quadrant by enrollment. This will help us in having more schools in that zone because we'll have more buses to be able to accommodate. When you place students out of quadrant by enrollment, we don't have a bus going to that school. That student lives over here. All the buses are in that area or for those schools. So when you get a student placed way over here at a different school, it's hard to just find a place to put them or find a bus to put them on. You don't have that when you got them in one area. So this will kind of spread things out and make it a little bit easier to accommodate. There might be a bus that's closer, you know, that we could put a student on, you know what I mean? It just makes it easier in a routing standpoint of where we're going to put them.
And do you see that, will there be any savings here? I like the work, it sounds like it makes sense, and you guys are transportation specialists, so I'm hopeful that it's gonna be a great outcome, and I think that it will be because it seems to make sense. But in terms of moving forward, it is my desire as a board member to get our high school kids on yellow buses. And I know that we struggle, as many institutions do, with filling positions, and that is one of our main reasons that we can't do that work. In this model, do you see us being able to create space to do more because of the efficiencies, is I guess what I'm looking for. I'm looking to be able to do more with what we have because on a sustainability level, this is, you know, we're dealing with shrinking workforce, we're dealing with bus drive, all of the things, so just a little
are you
vision
asking,
around it.
will we be able to accommodate high schoolers?
Yeah,
No.
eventually.
I
have to ask, I have to ask.
Not currently, but it's definitely something that we can explore moving forward.
Thank you.
Can I add to that thing?
Yeah.
The thing with the issue with transporting high schoolers, if we transport, it's just not transporting the 6 DPS high schools. If we transport high school, we have to transport charter and parochial high schools
Right.
also.
Right, and we
don't
understand.
have the manpower or buses for that.
Right, and we understand the complexities, and it's our job to hopefully simplify some of that for you. So we're just talking about our DPS schools, and we understand the challenges there, and certainly not asking you to create magic there, because that is impossible, and that's why we are where we are with it. But we're going to find some solutions, and I really am grateful for these solutions that you're putting forth, and I look forward to the outcomes. Appreciate you all.
Mr. Walker? All right, Ms. Reiner, did you have something to Mr. Lacy? Ms. Reiner to Mr. Lacy.
Thank you so much for this presentation. I'm hopeful that we can address the needs and transport our students as much as possible, K through 8. The high school piece is another piece, and I'm appreciative of all the efforts that you folks have done up to this point. If parents have questions, there was the form for them to fill out, but I'm sure that there are parents out there that have more questions. Who should they call?
So when parents come down to student enrollment for the bus transportation, while they're enrolling or while they're doing transportation, school changes, anything like that, we're trying to be proactive. So while they're there, we're actually going to do the registration for the parents. So for our EL families or for our parents that have certain barriers to stop them from doing it, if they don't have a smartphone or they just don't know how to use it, or grandparents are there, we'll actually do the registration while they're there.
Okay, what about for the parents who are watching the meeting right now and their child is already registered and they have a question that hasn't been answered through watching this presentation? They've gone to the map. By the way, thank you for putting that map on. That was fantastic. Parents who are already registered, whose kids are already registered, if they have further questions, who should they call?
They can also call us at student enrollment, and then I believe they also have your numbers, the 5410 4010, 542
937 542
4010.
4010.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Just one more time, 937-542-4010, just for people watching. Thank you so much, I appreciate it.
Mr. Lacy, then Mr. Walker.
Okay. Okay, one of the main ideas of the quadrants originally was okay, if you choose a school outside your quadrant, your transportation is up to you. And that's correct? Okay. And so this is the same. Okay, but if you're at a charter, I mean, going by the rule that charters have to live by the same transportation rules that we do, if I enrolled my child in a charter outside in another quadrant, does charter law override that?
Currently, the charters don't have a quadrant. We are busing charters all over the city, wherever they live.
But I mean, has that ever been looked up? I mean, I thought that was one of the ideas behind, huh?
No.
What now?
Charters do. They let charters get new transportation wherever they want.
Okay.
Charters get to wherever they want.
But I mean, okay. So, I mean, so they don't follow so that's an is that an actual exception in the law? Okay. Okay, I appreciate it.
If I could add.
Yeah.
Some transportation of charter schools is related to staffing and also the number of buses we have available. So if we have a charter near Kaiser or Wagaman and whatnot, we're going to try our routing team to reduce routes and combine, use tiers, et cetera, their schedules to minimize the number of drivers and buses. So.
Right, but I mean, even if we can't, we have cash in lieu, we still have to provide transportation.
Correct, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And then I noticed on the map there are colors that have stayed, and I don't know if they have any meaning anymore, because the colors before represented the neighborhoods that were recommended, where actually in the first iteration they would have been the neighborhood schools. So do you even, when somebody signs up, do you tell them do we even tell them that your neighborhood school is this school? Or when somebody comes in to
So when someone comes in to enroll, we also use the map. So we put their address in and we let the families know of the schools that are closer to your area.
Okay.
We also let you know that if you're less than 1.5, that you may not be eligible for a bus. And if then you're needing a bus or whatever, or you don't want the 7 a.m. school, you want the 9, we give you all of those options, have the paper, we go over everything with you. So then if you choose to pick the closest school or the school furthest away still in your zone, we can accommodate that.
Do people still choose buses do people still choose schools because their kids want to be on a bus? Does that still happen?
Mhm.
Okay. And
And then they
I have
can
a
also-
problem with that, actually. I mean, we have a lot of really good schools that are close to students, and if kids want to take a ride on a bus, it sounds like it. Oh well, I'll leave that then.
But if they do, they can always call us. Our number at student enrollment is 937-542-5555. And if they have questions regarding the buses or the schools that are closer to them, we can still help them over the phone or in person.
Thank you. Thank you
problem.
for what you do, and thanks for the presentation.
Mr. Walker?
Good evening. All right, so first question. This plan was initially announced in April. Has there been an increase or decrease in student enrollment regarding this type of plan?
Yes. So with the enrollment and also with the transfers, parents are coming in, and I think more so because of the options, where before they may have just had 2 options of schooling. Some parents want uniform schools, some parents want different times. So now that it's more open, you have a lot more variety with those schools. So yes, that has increased our enrollment numbers.
Second question, and this may be a treasurer, I mean, financially, is this plan possible with transporting this type of north-south plan? If students are going to be on the bus for 8.3 miles, 7 miles, 5 miles for another school building and things like that?
I haven't analyzed it yet. I will analyze it and let you know.
Okay, thank you. Next question for me would be, so now we're classifying district students as impractical to transport. Financially, what does that say for the district as well? So if we're basically now, that's dollars that we will end up paying out to parents or to providers to transport their kids. So basically, that's money that the district does not get to keep for salaries and the transporting of their own students, because now you're paying that out, right?
In lieu of, is that what
Yes, the in lieu of. Yeah, in this plan.
Yes, for charters, not.
Okay, so this here that says selecting a school outside of your zone, however, the family is responsible for transportation. Okay, so a student that is on the west side of Dayton, for instance, off of 3rd Street, that may want to go to Fairview, now will not be able to go to Fairview because, well, the parent will have to provide transportation for that student.
Yes, that's true, but a student that lived on 3rd Street in the quadrant system still couldn't go to Fairview. So that part isn't changing.
Okay, and that's for the specialty schools as well?
Specialty schools get transported all over the city. They're like charters. They get transported anywhere, no matter where.
Okay.
All the specialty schools do.
And then the last question for me would be with regards to, since we have a salary schedule that's based upon enrollment for principals and things, does this change that concept now because enrollment will change in buildings?
Yes, it does. When it's higher, they will get higher salary, and when it's lower, they will get the basic salary.
So a principal that may have 500 kids in their building and their enrollment drops because of this new system will end up getting a pay cut?
That depends on the board to pay cut. But
I mean,
when it's higher, yes, they will get the increase.
Okay. Did the principals and them have any input in this plan?
Not that I know of, no.
Okay, thank you.
Dr. Goodwine, then back over to Mr. Lacy.
Okay, follow up on Board Member Walker's question. You said the enrollment increased from what number to what number? Because I'm interested, because I get an enrollment report and I've seen it actually decrease, so that's what I'm interested in.
So I don't have the exact numbers, but I will look it up and get it back to you.
Yeah, if you could just send it to the whole board so they can know what that is.
Okay.
Okay, second, on the transportation, because we still, I mean, the law hasn't changed on the penalties from, time of getting on the bus. What is the projection of how this will work, knowing that we got some laws that kind of work against us with transportation? With that time frame of when they get on the bus to getting to the school?
We don't think it'll be a large change. We haven't studied it deeply, and we could do some projections and get back to you, but I don't know, just from a routing perspective, we don't think it's good.
I thought our time frame was 30 minutes. Is it an hour that we have from picking them up to drop them up? You gotta come to the mic. They can't hear
For other
you.
schools, it was an hour. For DPS schools, we were trying, because it's the quadrant, it's so small of an area, it didn't require, but the routes, it's an hour. It's been an
Okay, so
hour less.
let me
for
make
all
sure I
of them.
understand. We're penalized if we get them to school an hour after?
We're not going to get them to school, like, we're going to
No,
route them.
I'm just asking the thing in general. If they get on, from the time they get on the bus to the time to get to the school, how long do we have before we get a penalty based on the state's law, not our law, not our state?
Oh, I'm not for sure. I just know we create the routes to be an hour or less.
Okay.
So, all of them.
So you got, I think somebody, what's the time frame?
That is information we can get back to you, get back to the board with. We don't have that with right now.
Okay, so you guys, I just want to make sure I understand. You guys created this one, but that piece is a major piece because it's something that's beyond our control. But you guys don't know how this plan will impact the delivery of a child from the house to the school based on the constraints that we have on us. Correct?
Correct. As Ms. Ware mentioned, we're going to maintain less than an hour on the bus, but we don't have anecdotal, we only have anecdotal information that it may or may not change. We haven't studied it that deeply yet.
No, I'm not asking to study. I'm just the time frame of it. Like, is it 30 minutes? Is it an hour?
We haven't
Actually,
created the
okay, let me kick it to
routes.
legal for a question to just ask later of how much time do we have to get kids to school based on the.
Yeah, as
You got
routes are
something?
created later on in July, we'll have a better understanding of the timeframe.
Board member Reiner looked like did you have something on it?
I have a separate question. You can-
Oh, okay, so let me finish mine. Okay, so that's that one. And then opposite, where the high school students aren't really my concern on yellow buses because I think the RTA passes help them in life outside of here. I am more concerned about preschool and daycare, and I know that went away about 2 years ago. Have there been any conversation or thoughts on transporting preschool as well as childcare to childcare centers?
We've had some general discussions, and some of the preschoolers organizations are going to get back to us, but right now, we're so limited with our staffing, it would be a challenge to transport preschoolers as well as a K through 8 in the middle school.
I do understand it's a challenge, but I do also know that a major barrier to early education in that ages 3 to 4 is that they can't get to school, then they won't go to school. So although that is a challenge for us, it sounds like something that we should put more intentionality into, because if we get them earlier and we are able to maintain them, then they'll perform better. The theory is that they will perform better if they stay with us longer. So knowing that we take kids as early as 3.5, and we have preschool in just about every school as well as a standalone place, it seems like something that as a district we should put more intentionality to, because again, if they can get into our schools, then we have a better chance of retaining them throughout the life cycle of them being with us. So again, I understand it's a challenge for you guys, but I am requesting that we look into how we can overcome that challenge, knowing that the option sometimes is that they don't go to school at all. And it's more work for our team later in life to try to ramp and catch people up after the fact, where if we would have just got them a ride at 3.5, we could have just did something better.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Dr. Goodwin, I just want to try to clarify your earlier question. When you said route time and penalties?
Yes, I was asking, what is the penalty and what is the route? Like, how long do we have?
So it's 30 minutes before and after school for charter schools, but there is no 30 minutes before and after for Dayton Public, because we couldn't find ourselves. So
Okay,
the state finds us for charter schools.
Okay, one final question for you. Why do we put a 1.5 limit on our transporting if our charter school and parochial counterparts don't have such a limit? Like, why do we limit our kids like that?
They do.
Well, you just said they didn't when you said
No,
something earlier. When they said they transport them anywhere, I'm like, well, why do we put that
So,
same thing?
for charters, we have to transport to charters as long as they live through a minimum from their school. Like we have the 1.5 minimum for us. They have to have a minimum, but their maximum, the maximum they have is a 30-minute direct drive time. So if a school is within 30 minutes direct drive time from that house, then we have to transport them.
Okay. But I guess my question still is, why do we have, like, one of you guys in your conversation and questions to them, you're saying that the charters don't have the same limitations of the quadrants because they don't have quadrants. So why do we
that's
have
what
it?
I was gonna,
Like,
that
why
was
do we
my
have
next
that-
question.
Why do we have that limitation?
Okay, the reason this does not limit charter transportation, the reason is, as long as we have specialty schools, that you can go to a specialty school from anywhere in the city, except for the 1.5 minimum. As long as we do that for our specialty schools, we have to do it for all charters.
This even, the law says for charters, it's the law. They put that in there for charters. The law says, no matter what we did, no matter what our transportation rules are for public schools.
Well, I mean, that's why I'm saying, okay, we have to, they have to follow the same rules as us. So the 1.5 they follow,
No,
They
that's
don't
because
follow?
that's in the law too.
right.
So, but for.
So that's, so if
So why don't
if
we
we
give
upped it to 2, it would be up to 2 for charters also.
It would, so, it's, so, for charters, we put ours at that 1.5
Right.
to allow them more space within the quadrant at that time. So if whatever, so the thing is, charters don't have to follow the same rules as we do.
So do we even still need the 1.5? Because even to Mr. Lacy's point here, if I want a bus, as you guys say, people come in for a bus, but there's a school right there, I'm gonna opt for the bus if I'm relying on that for my transportation, which means that I'm kicking kids out from going to schools closer to them because you have that 1.5 standard that you have to be at least 1.5 for you to get a bus. Like if I'm 1 mile from the school, I won't get a ride. Correct? Is that right? Am I following that right?
That is
All the
right.
head nod says yes. But if I am a parent that has a child that I need the bus to ensure they get there every day, in the school, I may want them to go there, I'm gonna opt to go somewhere else because you won't transport me 1 mile to the school, but you'll transfer me 1.5 miles to this other location. So my question is, why do we have that limitation now? If you guys we're trying to open it up and make it more feasible for families to go to these schools. And from what I'm hearing in this conversation, the 1.5 doesn't necessarily impact what you're doing for kids in these 2 quadrants. So why wouldn't they get that? I mean, like, why is that limitation there for and the charter schools don't have that?
The charter schools is 2 miles.
Okay. So, but again, why are they getting more than us in some instances? Because you guys will take them anywhere.
So it sounds like you would like us to analyze how many students or what the increase will be on our bus routes and share that information with you.
I'm also curious if parents do request that, like they want to go to a school in their neighborhood, but they also need transportation to it. I just don't think we should be blocking them from being close to home because that enriches their neighborhood for you to be a part of what's happening in your community. So,
Got it. We'll get that information to you.
And I'll just say the ORC doesn't have a miles for non-public transportation, but it do have a 2 miles for public transportation. So it alleviates to charter school doesn't have a mile requirement by law. Okay. A follow-up question for me though, in looking back at the presentation where it says how was transportation involved, a keyword I don't see is parents. So did parents share any input in this?
No, we did not send that a Google form or survey to the parents.
Many of the conversations we have throughout the school year, we do take that advice under account. So when we have general discussions at cabinet and elsewhere, we give feedback to Dr. Lawrence and others, say, this is what parents are asking for. But in this process, the last couple of months, there hasn't been no direct communication with the parents. But throughout the school year, we do reconcile some of the questions they ask us.
So throughout the school year, the parents asked for this type of plan?
Not necessarily the plan. What we would take, for example, if the question we just raised, hey, I live a mile from one school, and it's out of quadrant, I can't go, but I live 2 miles to the school in my quadrant. But throughout the school year, we had those conversations with enrollment and others, and as this plan came to fruition, we did discuss that. So.
Anybody else?
I have
Ms.
a
Reiner?
question. So I have a hypothetical question that I would like to you to answer for me. A lot of parents and a lot of community members don't know the restraints with which we're working here. There's a nationwide bus driver shortage. It is difficult to find bus drivers. We are always recruiting and training and hiring bus drivers. But the reality is that we are mandated by the state to transport every single child in Dayton, regardless of whether they send their child to a Dayton public school or not a Dayton public school. And because of the constraints that we have to transport, I believe the numbers, I could be a little bit wrong, but 23,000 school-age children in Dayton, 13,000 are Dayton public, 10,000 are not Dayton public. We still have to transport all of the non-Dayton public schools, school children. And And because of that, we can only transport K to 8. We can't even transport our high schoolers. That's another issue that we've been really trying to wrap our heads around and make sure that we are doing everything we can to get our high school students to school. So hypothetically, if we did not have to transport non-DPS students, and we had our fleet and we had all of our drivers, would we be able to transport every single child in Dayton K-12 to and from school every day?
I'd like to speak to that. Mindy, could you come to the mic, please? So, Ms. Clark, so we sent out a survey to all the high school parents to find out if they would take bus transportation, yellow bus transportation, if we offered it. So the big thing is to find out what is that number. And then once we find that number out, is to have the conversation with routing and dispatch, once we find a number, to say how many routes is that. And there are, we're having a meeting, oh my God, Thursday or Friday this week to talk about some of these other possibilities. So that's where we are currently as it relates to the investigation of that.
Thank you.
Dr. Goodwin, then Mr. Walker, my fault.
Dr. Lawrence, on top of that one, are you guys also looking at, I know that the state put money into driver's education classes, and that piece of it, are there any plans whatsoever for us as a district to take advantage of that process?
Dr. Goodwin, yes. The bus drivers, actually the OBIs are the beginning baseline for the instructors for driver's ed. So we're working on the details of that this summer.
I mean, I don't know how much it will help us, but I know as a person who had recently just had to pay $550 for the course itself, that training is a pretty penny on individuals who may be able to eventually get the means to drive a vehicle. But the class itself is a lot that if you live paycheck to paycheck and you don't plan for it. So if there is something that we can do, I do think, again, we ought to do it. And I hope that those type of things get us into another path of ridership and driving.
We're working with the ESC to develop to work through the training certificate for teaching driver's ed, and we'll have the people go through that. And then the ESC is actually helping us find dealerships that will provide the cars for free.
Hey, I see how excited the one student opponent gets every year that they get a vehicle.
Yeah.
And I just go imagine if at least 10 at each school every year has something. That's 10 more individuals that are able to ride.
And I know you have a CDL, we can get you trained up to do driver's ed too.
Nah, I can't. Teenagers is different. That takes a special level of patience. One more question for you. I know the city last year, I believe they started that transportation plan that were finding, I mean, it was a range of things of adding more means of transportation, like bike paths and more efficient ways to get around. Has that had any impact on what we do here whatsoever?
It has not, but it's going to be part of the conversation. I think our next joint meeting is coming up with the city soon, and so that was a significant part of the conversation last time, transportation, and not just last time it was about us and what we're doing. Now there's the additional conversation on what is the city and other entities doing to help us in this space.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions? Mr. Walker, you had one?
Just to follow up on this high school transportation conversation. If the district was to transport high school students, then that is now considered specialty transportation. So students will be bused across the whole city and not just in this north-south plan anymore. So that means students will end up being on a bus for an hour. And how would that even work with routing when now we're looking at the entire district? Athletic events take place in the afternoon. If buildings are running until 4 o'clock, then that interferes with the athletic schedule now of getting our drivers their overtime routes and things like that. I'm just really trying to understand, can this actually happen if we do it ourselves? Or is it better for, I don't know, RTA to come to the table and be a better partner?
Yeah, I think it just depends. We have a lot of exploration to do, a lot of brainstorming and a lot of planning, and partnership will be required to provide transportation K-12.
And to clarify, this is not something that will happen starting in August.
No, it's not likely. No.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Dr. Goodwin?
I just like to leave y'all on, just thinking about preschool. They keep talking about high schoolers. I mean,
I added that to the list.
they'd be all right when it comes to, if I had to choose between preschool and high school, I'm gonna choose preschool
And
every
you said
day.
preschool and daycare? You
Preschool
provided
and
both in the
daycare.
past?
Those early learners, I mean, I don't know what it did for us in the past when they were transported, but I do hear that the theory is that if we can just get them earlier, that it will help us not only at that third grade test, but it helps us completely of their transition to academics altogether. So if there is any way, I know RTA may be in the future, not RTA, but what they're talking about with high schoolers is a long-term plan. If there is anything that we can find in the short term to make sure that the preschoolers that are enrolled in our preschools have transportation when they need it, I mean, that would help us tremendously of daily attendance and just that growth point of that time that they have there before they get to the K. I know you already got K through 8 down, but if there is room to add any population, it is my request. And I don't know how my other colleagues feel, but I don't see how they could object to preschoolers and getting assistance to get there every day when we know that it will do better for them in that kindergarten and in that first grade year.
And I'll say nothing is impossible, but we will do our due diligence in turning over every stone, exploring every opportunity to make sure that our students are taken care of.
I appreciate that, especially because when we hear one thing I've heard is that a lot of individuals choose to go to a preschool outside of our district because they transport. So if our true plan is to work on not only instilling being a part of this district early in life, that first year matters of them starting with us and progressing through us all the way through. So I know that our goal is to try to get families to come back in. If we can get them to start with us, we got a better chance of keeping them than to try to tell them that what we're doing is better in some way than something that they're used to.
Appreciate that. I definitely, on that, want to say I agree with Dr. Goodwin on that early learning piece. I was just, had a quick line with Dr. Lawrence. We don't want to definitely get you as well, Dr. Jones, to look at even what the possibilities of piloting something in the north or south zone at one of our schools that provides finding a transportation of pre-K, seeing how we can pilot something like that, looking at this next school year, seeing what that would look like, getting parents used to the different rules for pre-K transportation. I think that's one of the big ones that we had a few years back, is that it's similar to the kindergarten transportation where that route gets longer because people have to be there. You have to have certain things going on. So I think looking at those pieces is good, but also because the state law doesn't hit us the same way it does K through 8 or K through 12, but since we're doing K through 8 at that pre-K level, so it doesn't put us in a position where because we're doing something here, we're not mandated to do it elsewhere. So I think I like that opportunity. So I would definitely request just looking into what that would look like, talking to parents, seeing how that would help us, because that is one of our biggest things is kindergarten readiness. And then lastly, I want to say I appreciate the transportation team. One of the things that we talked about, or you heard for years and years, was Dayton Public Schools couldn't transport their students. And that was one of the things that you heard every campaign cycle. That was one of the things that was plastered over the news, is how terrible transportation was for years and years. But yet, we've been here this past school year, and I've not seen a DPS parent come in and complain about it the way we've seen it in previous years. We haven't seen it out there. And so I want to give you guys your kudos on that, because we don't lift up that enough. And so I am of the belief that when we get in the news for things that people say we don't do well, a lot of times when we correct those things, those same groups never come back and say that you've improved. So I want to publicly say I appreciate the work that's been going on to improve the work, to improve getting our kids to school every day. And I just look forward to seeing what's next for you and your team. But I definitely wanted to say that publicly on the dais, because if you guys were getting everybody to school late and you had a bunch of call-offs every day, you'd have reporters and parents all in here. So let me publicly say I appreciate the improvement and the work that's been going on from the routers to the drivers to the administrators over there. So appreciate that.
I have one more question.
Dr. Goodwin?
I wrote it on my paper and I forgot to ask, so sorry, guys. Are we doing good with having interpreters to help with our English as a second language as well as, our non-English speaking individuals to just be able to help through this process? For both sides of how we're getting information out to individuals that English is not their first language.
I know previously at International, they had interpreters that were actually riding the buses with the drivers to help get the students home who had communication barriers. I know they're available. I'm not sure how much the driver utilizes it. Typically probably after about a week or so, you know your kids, and then you don't need them anymore.
So if there's anything that at this beginning part, which I think the beginning of where you guys from enrollment to finding your route and that piece that we can do as a body to assist with making sure that that communication piece is available to you, please let us know, because we definitely want people to have positive experiences, especially when you are dealing with a language that is not your first language and you are trying to figure out what's going on with your kid. So just want to make sure that that is still just at the consciousness of as we are gathering people in this space here, because knowing that we are a welcoming city, I just wanted to make sure that you guys had what you need, which when we get to comments, I'm going to have to ask what's going on with the ELL committee, because I haven't heard anything since Dr. Pickett left us. But that's it. Thank you.
All right, appreciate you guys on that. And Dr. Lawrence, for us as a board in the district, I would want to add that a lot of the consternation around quadrants also was a conversation around equity. And I think that's something that we can't get away from. And I think that we have to attack head on and making sure that we're providing those things. Because I think that was one of the pieces. I was at a meeting as a parent where, that was the fuss. It wasn't that just, we want to go to a community school. It was, I'm in a community where I may live in poverty, there might be crime in my area, but then also the school that I'm going to doesn't have the same resources as another school. And now I'm being told I cannot go to that place. So I think that conversation around transportation, opening up more choice, I think also, because I think Dr. Goodwin said as well, we see schools in certain areas being packed. And so I think that also goes back into that conversation of making sure that we're providing equity, what kids need, what parents need, the resources that we need, that makes a parent feel like, you know what, I want to go to this school. I want to go to school on this side of town. I want to have my family spending time on here. So I appreciate this conversation, and I also want to make sure that we're moving forward on that and providing that equitable education across the district as well.
Thanks for your thoughtful comments. And thanks to all those teams that worked together for the presentation. It's good to see. Presentation, third grade OST data, Fairview, but more to the point, I wanted to start off by saying I appreciate the work that you're doing there, our partnership. It has really grown and gotten deeper this year. I love the questions you all ask. How can we be where you want us to be to help kids get where they want to go? So come on up, Omega CDC, and let's talk about the fantastic work that's been going on over there.
Good evening.
Good evening, good evening.
So,
Get 2 awards.
The 2 awards. I think you already know who we are, but just to level set here, I'm Vanessa Ward, President of Omega Community Development Corporation, also Pastor Emerita of Omega Baptist Church, and this is?
And I am Rachel Ward, Vice President of Omega CDC.
Yeah, so just as also a framing of who we are, we're part of the CDC that was formed by the church in 1997. And really, we said we were actually available to partner and collaborate with so many over the years. But in about 2014, we became very focused on our work. focused on a geography, Northwest Dayton, which was the area where the church existed, but also was an area where we saw a lot of disinvestment over a 30 years period of time. We said, what can we do to dig deeper? We're going to stay in the area as a church, but more importantly, as our nonprofit organization, we're going to get more focused in the kind of services and the collaborations that we're able to do as a 501c3 nonprofit organization. So we revisited our mission and vision and purpose, and said we would focus on something that we did a lot of research on, this two-generation and a focus on intergenerational poverty by looking at how do we catalyze change in several areas, collaborating with others on building stronger educational systems. Economic stability in the area was a focus we wanted to look at as more businesses were leaving the area. How can we partner and collaborate with others to make sure more attention is being given to Northwest Dayton? How can we look at that in terms of community engagement and community development? We actually believe in the community and believe that there are assets in the community. How do we help the community see how great they are and what contributions they can bring to the table? And then ultimately, health and wellness was very much a focus. So we used this mission, breaking the cycle of intergenerational poverty by catalyzing change in Northwest Dayton. Rather than go in every part of the city, which was somewhat what the nonprofit was doing before, when we did serve, I remember Dr. Goodwine, we were communicating with people throughout and working on the benefit of ex-offenders throughout the county. We got very focused in Northwest Dayton. Our vision was really to forge the path for healthy, prosperous, and racially equitable communities in Northwest Dayton. Then ultimately to inspire hope. We just felt as all the disinvestment was happening, people were basically walking around this without hope. And this was our encouragement by being a nonprofit that focused on those areas. As I said, collaboration was key for our nonprofit. We realized we were not experts in anything except for community engagement and being there for the community. But partnering with folks, we saw a difference. One of our first partnerships was with Dayton Public Schools. Way back, although we started in 1997, I go back all the way to starting an after-school program called the Omega Character Academy, which was in the church. And at that time, DPS buses pulled up with students whose parents gave an okay, approved for those students to come for after school at the church. It happened there. We had to limit the number because it was free, and we had volunteers serving. It was really rough, y'all, you know, to have 60 students and all volunteers who were Sunday school teachers, et cetera. But we believed in partnership even then. Officially, our partnership really got cemented in 2017 when we got the first 21st Century Grant, which focused us in Fairview School, gave us structure and a framework for this after-school programming. We were no longer with volunteers, but we actually could hire teachers, certified teachers, and others to support us in that work. DPS was a partner then at Fairview. And we are pleased today to say that because of that longstanding partnership, we have been able to work collaboratively with the Dayton Public Schools, and I have to say that I'm really grateful to you, Dr. Lawrence, for agreeing to support us in this and bringing us on board this year, asking us to go deeper in our understanding of the partnership, and I think we're in a much wonderful and better place. Looking at what we saw at Fairview once we got really seriously in it was the fact that our children were not reading at level. And this is no news to everybody. We are not the educators, but as community partners, what could we do to help? That was really key for us. We were able to really scale our understanding of it and the work when we recently got the award of the Promise Neighborhood Grant in 2023. This enabled us to look at this school year very specifically, look at metrics around what we were doing there, and then to build as a community partner other supports that supported the school in the day-to-day. What was alarming for us is when we did the Promise Neighborhood Grant, our application said that third grade rating was at 18%. By the time those students did the testing at the end of that year, I think it was at 8.9%. This was very difficult for us to face, but it was one of the metrics that the federal government and the Department of Education asked us to look at specifically. And it was one of the areas that we knew we needed to go deeper in working with the school district to see what we could do to make a difference there. We have not only the concern about our children reading at a higher level of proficiency, but we have the federal government looking at us and saying, how are you making this better? What are you doing in partnership with your school district to make a difference? So here was the statistic that we had, and I'll ask Rachel to kind of tell what happened since then and why we're so excited to be here today.
All right. So my mother talked a little bit about what we defined as our problem of practice. And through the Hope Zone, what we were able to do was to look at the data, which we measure at the population level. And for us, through Hope Zone Promise Neighborhood, population level is defined based on our 3 partner schools. And we were very intentional at identifying partner schools through Dayton Public Schools, right? We could have selected any schools in Northwest Dayton, but we selected 3 Dayton Public Schools, Fairview Elementary School, Edwin Joe Brown Middle School, and Thurgood Marshall High School as our kind of K-12 continuum, a continuum that students that we're hoping to encourage students to maintain, to matriculate through K-12 so that we can stay with them and encourage them and support them through that. So what we determined was if we could all, and this was through encouragement with those who have done Promise Neighborhoods across the country, was that if you could align and mobilize your community. So yes, you have your community partner like Omega CDC and you have your school district, but what happens when you align other community partners, right? And you mobilize people around something, right? What happens if you align people around something? What happens when you build trust? So what we did was we said, okay, 8.9%. Are we not angry? Is this not horrible? What are we going to do differently? We've all been investing. We've been doing after school programs, and it's not enough. So we brought the principals and the teachers together, and we talked to Hope Zone residents and to our young people and community partners and our funders. And we talked to the city and the county and to other people. And we really talked about building trust. And then we really took some time to align strategies. And so today I really want to talk about what those aligned strategies look like and spend a moment just going through each of these that are listed here. So as my mother mentioned, and Vanessa Ward is my mother, as you guys know, as my mother mentioned, we have met several times with Dr. Lawrence and the Central Services team, as well as the building leadership at all 3 schools, but we spent a good deal of time with Principal Goodwine and Assistant Principal, now Principal Shelton at Fairview Elementary, as well as the 3rd grade teaching team at Fairview Elementary, really developing aligned strategies. And so that was very intentional as we worked through that. We can go to the next slide. Each year we have administered Freedom Schools, which is a national summer learning program through the Children's Defense Fund. We are actually actively in Freedom Schools right now. There's a parent meeting happening at Fairview Elementary right now. We have 150 scholars that were served last summer, and 100% of those scholars either maintained or improved their reading proficiency in summer 2023. What I can tell you right now is I just got the data from Reverend Demetria, who's over here, who started our Scholars of Hope program back in 2017. And it looks like, there's a significant percentage of our K through 5th grade students that are off track with reading proficiency right now. But based on the data that we've seen over the last several summers, those students do not experience summer slide when they're in our Camp Hope Freedom Schools program. And we expect to see the same thing this year as well. We can go to the next. Through Scholars of Hope this year, because we were all mobilized around that 3rd grade reading proficiency, we aligned with churches and faith-based institutions in the Hope Zone, and they said, we're going to recruit reading buddies to serve in the after-school program. We want 50 reading buddies. And do you know what? We found 50 volunteers to come and serve as reading buddies in the after-school program, and they were matched with students to come and read with them. We also had a Prepare to Pass class, which was administered by certified teachers during the after-school program, where they were looking at, formative assessments and identifying where the students were, what their cut scores were, and how to coach them to get past those marks and to see where they were and how to get to where they needed to go. We worked very, very closely with the third grade teaching team and with the administrators on an ELA boot camp. And I believe that most of the elementary schools across the districts also did an English language arts boot camp. That was a district initiative. But at Fairview, Omega CDC supported that ELA boot camp. We registered those students for Scholars of Hope so that after they participated in that boot camp, they continued to stay in the after school program. They received transportation after school. They received a meal. We also supplemented the staffing. So in addition to the teachers who were teaching that program, we were able to aid with additional certified teachers from Fairview Elementary that were paid through our after-school program and through our Hope Zone Promise neighborhood to add additional staffing to support that program, right? And then through Hope Zone, through our education work group, we had an event called the Hallow Read event. It was a Halloween literacy-focused event where there were stations where students were able to rotate through the stations, and there were literacy-focused activities. And we did an event where people came together and they prayed over students they prayed about students taking the OST tests, and we did volunteer recruitment and quarterly convenings. I'm just giving you examples of all of the different ways that we align strategies. When I say we threw everything we could at this and mobilized community, that is literally what we did. We can go to the next. The other initiative that we really aligned through Hope Zone, and something that we're excited about and we believe we have an opportunity to deepen in partnership with Dayton Public Schools, is student success planning. We're part of a community of practice with the Harvard Graduate School of Education and Ed Redesign, which is student success planning. They have an Institute for Success Planning, which is an individualized approach. So we have 16 student success navigators that have caseloads of students that they work with. They do weekly tap-ins, which has been an amazing effort to increase student attendance, decrease chronic absenteeism, because they are checking Learning Circle to see if students are not coming to school. They're going and doing home visits when they see that students are not that they're not there. We have some success stories later on in the presentation where we can show you where there are some students that there was a marked difference because their student success navigators went and found them and said, hey, we need you to be at school. We're expecting to see you there. And then our family resource coordinators are truly amazing. Through the neighborhood schools model, there are about 10 family resource coordinators across Dayton Public Schools. 3 of them are employed by Omega CDC. The family, or 4 actually, we have a manager. But early in the year, our lead family resource coordinator hosted a parent meeting in partnership with the building principal and third grade teaching team, where she literally went through the data. They worked on the data, looked at it and said, this is where your students are. They worked with the teaching team and put together literacy kits and said, here are some activities that are designed specifically for your student, things that you can work on at home with your student. These are things that we can practice together, that we can do in the classroom, and they work through how to build those skills with the students, and they continue to have literacy and numeracy nights and to do family engagement, and then to meet some of those basic and emergency needs so that those non-academic barriers were met so that students could come to school and really focus on their academic achievement. So what I'm here to share, let's get to the results. 8.9% at the end of the 22-23 school year, which is what was really disparaging. And what I will say is I was angry and saying, well, why are we doing all this? You know, what are we investing resources in? And do we really need to still be doing programming? What are we in the business of, right? And at the baseline at fall 2023, the third graders this year, overall proficiency was 10%. Through all of those aligned efforts, an amazing third grade teaching team, dynamic building leadership, leadership from Central Services, and I think Judy Spurlock is here, and others throughout the district. Data that was shared with us from Mindy Clark, and I mean, there are so many others who have contributed to this, and we know that this is all through the aligned strategies. But through all of that work and through that collaboration, and I believe also through a mobilized community that said, okay, you're right, we have to do something different, what we see is a 17% increase in reading proficiency at Fairview Elementary. So from 10% baseline to 27%. And we are extremely proud of the third grade students at Fairview this year. We're very excited about what occurred this year.
So we thought we'd share a few success stories, and we got permission from their parents as well as the pictures of the students. We know better than to have names, but we're just so proud. If they were able to get an award, it would be amazing. Shannon Davis got nearly a perfect score, an 847. L'Oreal Hill scored a 742. That's the next one. She's so cute. Zoe Gant scored a 736. You probably have seen her brother, he started with us with Scholars of Hope. And the first 2 weeks, he cried every single day. He did not want to be there. Now he's like our main spokesperson. He's going to middle, India made nearly 100-point increase in her score. And she was being supported by Miss Kathy, one of our SSNs. So we know that that Student Success Navigator piece is so critical because she actually walked with that. I mean, she was there and worked hard and got the family to work hard to support that student. Kalani Battle showed tremendous growth. She also had an SSN who did attendance home visits, and she saw great improvement since the fall. The next one, Malachi Rathard, scored a 731. 27% is not the best that you all have in the district. I know that across the board, we saw, I think Dr. Lawrence shared with us, great improvements in math, also in reading. But I just want to say, from 10 to 27, we are thinking something went right. And we don't think it's one thing. We don't know because we're not educators, we're community organizers, and community get on the ground, roll up your sleeves and your boots and do whatever the district is doing, we want to align with. That's the kind of partnership we want to go deeper with, but here's what we know, there was a change. And so what do we do in terms of increasing that? How do we get better numbers? How do we get the community, we talked about purpose being inspiring hope. How do we get the community to have hope enough to keep your children in DPS? Because we need for them to be there for the long haul. And we need for this work, particularly because we're focused in Northwest Dayton, from preschool, from Mini University. Now we have 3 other programs that are getting preschool dollars through Hope Zone dollars, preschool support through Preschool Promise, at schools, what's the other one? Fairview is one of our other ones. We want those kids to stay in the system, and we want to prove that good things are happening. And just as we celebrated those young ladies that were top scorers, in track, we can be top scorers in our math and in our reading, and be prepared to go on to college. And we're here for the long haul. So here's the partnership testimonials. We did not incite these testimonies, but they came from the principals themselves. Talked about the value of this partnership, and that thrills us. 27% is not enough. We still have opportunities to recruit, retain more credentialed teachers in our schools. We also must continue to engage our students and families in positive activities in the schools and the community, and we're not going to let up. The second testimonial, which was beautiful, from the principal at Thurgood, mainly focusing on the fact that we were made aware about 3 weeks before graduation that there were a number of students who were at risk of not graduating. And we used our SSNs, the Student Success Navigators, our Family Resource Coordinators, to support those teachers and the principal, the teachers and the students, talking to students and saying, what do you need to do for credit recovery? Teachers, what do they need to do for credit recovery? What else do they need to get in? All of that. And we were able to support the teachers and the leaders of Thurgood to see all but 22 of the students that were on this vast list see them to graduation. We believe in going deep. One of our examples of the work that we're trying to do, Cradle to Career, place-based work, is the work of Harlem Children's Zone. And Jeffrey Kennedy wrote a book called Whatever It Takes. That's what we're believing. And I don't know how much longer I have to be here. I've been doing this a while. But if this is the last thing, I'm glad that I get to be a part of this opportunity of a movement that incorporates community partners, and the parents and the children in this district to make the difference that we know our children are capable of making. So thank you. Thank you, Dr. Lawrence, for asking us to come. I texted him, I think, on a Sunday morning early before church and said, we just got these numbers. Congratulations to you, Dr. Lawrence, and the team. But we also take a little bit of congratulations because we believe we've had a little role in this. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Definitely appreciate you all. Definitely appreciate you. And I apologize for all the trouble my little one causes over at the Hope Center. So, do we have any questions or comments from the board? Mr. Walker?
Well, good evening to my church family. Just a few questions from me. First off, thank you for all that you do. I myself try to make it a priority to make it out to the morning clap-ins monthly. Although I agree with some parents, Fairview is way, way early, but we make it work, even in the winter. So I'm appreciative of it. For me, my first question would be barriers that you see on the district side that we may be able to look at eliminating to be better at this type of work, district-wide, and things like that. Any suggestions, comments that you may feel?
I think we're making good progress in just talking to each other, and you know, I think we want to hear. There is an educational plan that has been set. We want to align as best we can and mobilize our community. I think as few movements, when we know something is working well, I believe we need to try to keep working at it. And so my ask is that, you know, there are certain players that have been involved in what I see as success this year. We need to make sure we keep those people in place. So I know our leaders are consistent. I don't know about the teaching staff, but I do want to make sure that we have alignment as we move forward. Does that make sense?
It does, and I appreciate that. And then my last question would be, in your eyes, how do we, I guess, get more community partners like Omega CDC to the table to do this great work?
You know, I think there's ongoing effort to build the capacity of community-based organizations, right? There is a Montgomery County 2Gen collaborative that meets every month. Through that collaborative, we have established kind of best practices and ways that we're looking at an outcomes framework, things that we've defined as, you know, all of us are doing family coaching and educational enrichment, and most of us are connected to schools, so we're connected to neighborhood school centers. So continuing to support that work and aligning frameworks with that, allowing us to continue doing that work and building trust with community partners, identifying what it looks like to align accountability measures so that we are communicating and there are open lines of communication with the district so that you're getting what you need, but then those community partners are able to do what they need to do to continue moving, I think is really important as well. But what was helpful for Omega CDC a few years ago was that there was a catalytic investment that allowed the organization to really build capacity. With that capacity then came the opportunity to continue mobilizing around this vision. I think there may not be that same catalytic investment that will align across the entire community, but the lessons learned, we don't have to keep relearning, right? We can apply some of those things and accelerate the work. And so we just have to all make sure that we're doing that together and moving forward as a community together.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
I just want to add, I do not think that this cannot be replicated. And so as we are able to create that framework, and also at this point, we are in conversations at a national level where Omega is on the map. Oh, Dayton is on the map, I should say that more importantly. Dayton is on a map. And that map, I think, is inviting other investors, others who will bring some resources that I think could help the scaling of the work across the whole district and the region. And that would be key. For me, it would be the ideal goal that this is not just happening in Northwest, but it's happening East Side, it's happening, in all of the areas where we absolutely have opportunity to do this kind of catalytic work.
Last question for me. Can you take on another school?
Do we have to answer that on the mic?
No, but truly, thank you so much. I really appreciate it for all your work and your team as well.
Any other questions? Dr. Bailey?
Yeah. I want to make sure I'm correct when you said you would have liked to have seen your proficiency number higher, right? So when you've gone back to the table, have you gone back to the table to say, what do we need to do to get it higher? And if you have done that, what do you plan to do for next year to get that number higher?
So for Hope Zone, the target that we set for year 5 of the grant is 45%. And that is when we had baseline at 18% when we wrote the grant, right? So 45% continues to be the year 5 target in 2027. We, of course, know 45% is not, good enough either, right? So we're still striving for that, and we will continue to align the strategies that were put into the grant. There are things that are best practice strategies based on research, like high dosage and high impact tutoring, right? Things that the district has expressed interest in and that we know that research supports. And so, if there are opportunities to align those strategies with the work that we're doing, I think we will invest in those or align in whatever ways there are opportunities. We also had a wonderful meeting with district leadership this morning with Mindy Clark and Sharon Goins this morning, and our data team with Omega CDC's data team. And so we're starting to look at some things and try and disaggregate data and look at the interventions that were aligned to really get to kind of the crux of, okay, so what is really moving the needle? And if we are to invest more into some of those strategies, really getting to, okay, what is really actually making some difference so that we can replicate more of that? And how are we aligning those lessons learned? Because those are the kind of things that we want to replicate and scale, not just in the Hope Zone and not just at Fairview, but those are lessons that can be applied across the district, right?
Second question is, who does your data?
So we have an internal database systems administrator, then there's me, and then we have a data analytics firm, Mind's Eye LLC, which supports us.
Thank you.
Dr. Goodwin? Oh, Mr. Lacy.
Just want to thank you for staying so focused on something that really helps our children. That's all. I just want to thank you.
I failed to mention our managing director of strategic initiatives, Tracy Sibbing, who manages our data team. She's over here as well.
That's my neighbor. Dr. Goodwin.
First, thank you for the presentation. It's always good to where you see some growth. It's encouraging to see that. I think one of the things you guys mentioned was about stability of staff. So to see that former principal now Goodwine and Shelton actually, because Fairview was really low on our last set of scores, and to see that they had some really positive growth, I think is not only kudos to this program, kudos to the administration staff, and kudos into that entire team, because they got started really late. So that part is good. I'm sad in that we lost Principal Goodwine, because again, that's now a change and that ramp up piece. So I'm hoping that we didn't lose too many individuals at that institution, so it's not recreating and you can continue to go there. I do have questions. If you guys, I know we are talking specifically right now about the results at Fairview, but did you see anything similar in the other two schools that you all work with?
So we have to disaggregate the data. I think we did see gains in other schools as well. Through our Scholars of Hope program, we saw some improvements, but I can definitely disaggregate that information and share a report with the board.
It'd be good to see, just to see how it was performing on that one.
Sure.
I will say too, my nephew who went on the college tour, and he had never heard of the Omega because he goes to Thurgood. He'd never heard of the program, and he got to meet kids on the program, and he was like, "Do you know we have this program called Scholars of Hope? It's like Omega. I need to really find out about this program," because that experience, like it's so cool that you help kids in Thurgood Marshall go on a college tour that they would have probably never have gone on but for being a part of that program. And seeing that growth right there, I think that is a testament to some of the things that people get to experience because they are exposed to some programs that understand this is what you need to kind of see life outside of Residence Park area. So I definitely appreciate that one on you. My other question is not really directed towards you guys. Dr. Lawrence, is more towards you. So it's good to see this one, but I haven't seen any of our actual OST scores. Can we get a copy of that information as well as just our scores in general of how we've done? Typically in the past, I can't find it online, so I'm interested to see overall what we did last year and how that went.
Sure.
Thank you. Other than that, thank you guys. I appreciate the work here. I am interested to see how the other schools and how that is going, but definitely appreciate everything you do because I'm sure we do not pay not enough for the time that people put into what it takes to actually help humans develop and become just the best version of themselves. So thank you.
No, thank you all for your support. Thanks.
Thank you.
Now we have one. President Smith, we have one final presentation. Council of Great City Schools, Dr. Michael Hinojosa, former superintendent of Dallas Independent School District and 5 other school districts, 27 years in the game as a superintendent.
Thank you. Mr. President, members of the board, Mr. Superintendent, thank you, staff. It's been quite a treat for me to be in town for the last 2 days. I was a superintendent for 27 years, and I am getting the opportunity to be the superintendent in residence for the Council of the Great City Schools. And my job there is to help people be successful and avoid the mistakes that I made in my career. And so, first of all, thank you for your work. I've had a pleasure being here tonight. I've met a couple of you in town in the last couple of days. I've also watched some of your board meetings. I know that you're trying to move the needle, and I want to commend you for your service. You very rarely get thanked. Being in this business my whole life has really been an inspiration to be able to work with you. I'm also working with your superintendent to make sure that you guys have a high degree of success. And so I want to talk about 3 things: the past, the present, and the future. And about the past, he and I share similar situations. We're both students in the district where we lead. I was a superintendent in Dallas for 13 years. I was an immigrant, and I grew up in the inner city of Dallas, in a part of Dallas called Oak Cliff, which is like the East LA of Dallas. And I got the opportunity to go to college and had an opportunity to succeed. And I'm very proud of my past. I never apologize that I'm an immigrant and that I grew up in the hood, and I got an opportunity because a teacher asked me to apply for a scholarship for Future Teachers of America. And that's what set my trajectory. And so what I sense is, things are not perfect, but what I sense is there's a lot of hope. But before I get to the hope, the second thing I want to talk about is that what I've seen of this district and of your superintendent and meeting most of the staff today, I've seen a lot of enthusiasm. Nothing great happens in the absence of enthusiasm, and I see it. Now, some of it needs to be channeled because there's a lot of energy there, but we do need to be focused, and if everything's important, nothing's important. And so I think that if you have the right strategic initiatives and you have the right strategy and you implement it for a while, you can overcome anything. I can tell you Dallas was the worst district in the country in the 90s. We had 5 superintendents in 5 years, and 1 went to federal prison. And so when you start with issues like that, then somebody came in before me and made the job doable. But I was able to stay for 13 years. I was there for 6. I was there for 6, left, I went to Cobb County, Georgia, and came back for 7. And it took that long to make sure that your students are kindergarten ready. It took that long to have 11% of our students graduate with an associate's degree while they're still in high school. So, but you got to start now. I think you have the right enthusiastic. And so I look to the future with hope and aspiration because I see a lot of great ingredients here. This work is not easy. It's very difficult. In fact, it's so difficult that when I first became a superintendent, I was 6'5". And I'm 5'6" now. So you get cut down to size in this job very often. And so you have to have a thick skin, and you got to keep the energy, and you can't take it personally because there's a lot of important work. But I'm excited to work with the council. I hope to see you. We have our national conference actually in Dallas this year in October, and the council has a lot of resources for school boards and for staff members. And I would encourage you to get more involved with the Council of the Great City Schools. And we have people that are walking in your shoes. Everything we heard about tonight, we have people that are working on those things. And when you present at the council, they vet all the presenters. You don't get to present if you don't have data, like you saw the results today. Those are the people that get to present, and you get to see other people. It's very inspirational when you get to see people in your shoes that are knocking it out. And so I want to thank you. You may see me again, maybe not. It just depends on my relationship with your superintendent and whatever the ask is. And we also have a significant board services department. We have former board members that have become board coaches. And so it just depends on what the appetite of this school board is about getting your community to the future. So that's all. I know you're busy and had a long day, and I know I'm very proud that tomorrow we get to celebrate a national holiday. I'm very good friends with Opal. She lived in Fort Worth, and she invited me to one of her ceremonies. So to Texas, we started a lot of bad things, but we started Juneteenth. And so you get an opportunity to celebrate that tomorrow. So I'll turn it back over to you, Mr. Chair. Those are all my prepared comments.
Appreciate you, sir. Appreciate your service. Appreciate you spending some time in Dayton, Ohio.
I enjoyed it. Thank you.
All right. Moving forward, do we have any members of bargaining units present that would wish to speak? Seeing none, Madam Treasurer, do we have anyone signed up for hearing of the public?
Yes.
Okay. As always, please limit your remarks. Try to limit your remarks to 3 minutes. When you're called upon, identify yourself, state your name and address, and your reason for addressing the board. If you have any materials for distribution, please give them to the treasurer. Address the board as a whole through the president, not board members individually. And finally, it's inappropriate to address any matter involving pending disputes, grievances under a labor agreement, disciplinary action involving an employee or student, ongoing labor negotiations, concerns or matters that have already been settled, and or any matter which because of its nature is deemed appropriate to be discussed in executive session. The purpose of public hearing portion of the meeting is for members of the public to express viewpoints and public concerns. Madam Treasurer, who do we have to speak today?
Miss Johnny Watson.
Good evening.
Good evening. That's hard to follow, Omega, but I'll try. President Smith, I'm Joni Watson, and President Smith, Superintendent Lawrence, board members, Treasurer Braham, you in public. I'm Joni Watson. I'm a DPS alumni and also a retired art teacher, 35 years. I have some concerns about the talk about adding a football team at Stivers School for the Arts. I guess one of my biggest concerns is the funding aspect of it. I'm pretty sure, although I don't know, but I'm pretty sure that to start a football team, a startup, because it hasn't been there in a long time, would require a lot of funding. And I just want to make sure that that funding would not be pulled from some of the other things that are going on at Stivers School for the Arts. That's a huge concern. I've volunteered for the last 3 years at most of the Stivers auditions. In fact, I'm the first person that a parent and a child will see when they walk in the door because I get to hand out clipboards. And I've not yet had a parent or a student ask me about what athletics are available at Stivers. Never have had that. The parents, I'm pretty sure I would venture to say that the parents are aware of what athletics, if any, that are offered at Stivers. And they're not coming to auditions because of athletics or because of football. They're coming because it is a nationally recognized school for the arts. I'm sure that, and it's recognized nationally as the best school year after year after year. We're all very proud of that. I know that Cincinnati Public has a high school for the arts and they don't have a football team. And I know that Fort Hays and Columbus City Schools also does not have a football team as well. I was really happy to hear someone, I think it might have been Dr. Goodwine, ask, or maybe it was Mr. Walker, if parents had, or students or staff had been asked about some things. So I'm just kind of wondering if the parents and the staff of Stivers have been asked if they even want a football team, because I don't know if that's been done or not. So if you drive by Stivers any day of the week, you'll see lots of cars there because there's always a lot of things going on after school at Stivers. There's music rehearsals and theater rehearsals. There's extra lessons. So I'm just wondering as well how that time is going to be split up when you add a big sport. And I realize there are some sports at Stivers, but football is a big one. And I'm wondering if, are we asking students one more time to pick and choose where they're going to spend their after-school time? And how is that going to affect some of the arts programs that are in Stivers right now? I'm also worried about injuries. So I'm worried about a musician who may have an arm broken or a
Ms.
wrist
Watson,
broken.
you're at 3 minutes, so if you
Okay.
want to.
So I'm just asking you to please consider these things when you're talking about the football program at Stivers. Thank you.
Appreciate you. Do we have anyone else, Madam Treasurer?
No, that's it.
Okay, moving on to superintendent's agenda, superintendent's recommendations.
I recommend approval of the following human resources superintendent's recommendations.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and second. Any questions on the motion? Dr. Goodwin.
I'd like to pull number 1 and number 11. 1, I just want more information on what's happening there. 11, this position just got posted, I think, last week. So I'm interested how we have a candidate already. But I just want to pull those two.
11 shouldn't be on there. Are you saying
To vote on the next meeting. If 11 is, it shouldn't be there. It's on there right now, so it's there for a vote. But 1, I do want to find out more about what happened.
All right, so you would want to motion to table that to the next meeting?
Yes.
All right, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Questions on that?
I have a concern about tabling number 1, putting that past the July 1st. Well, I guess, no, it's July
No.
10th. July 10th, isn't it?
Yeah, and it says.
Is our meeting,
It's a board retreat on the 29th, so
Right.
it's still a date there.
Okay, so if needs be,
Yeah.
we can vote on this on the 29th? Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
May we have a vote?
This is on the table.
The
Motion
table.
For the table?
Mhm.
Okay. President Smith,
Yes.
Ms. Wick,
Yes.
Dr. Goodwin,
Yes.
Dr. Bailey,
Yes.
Mr. Lacy,
Yes.
Mr. Walker,
Yes.
Ms. Reinhardt.
Yes.
7 yeses.
All right, any other questions on HR?
I did have a question, and I just did a count. Last school year, we had 0 academic coordinators leaving the district. This makes number 6 or 7 just this school year alone. I mean, is there a plan to really look at this department and see, I mean, is it a employee morale thing, or, I mean, this is literally just the 6th or 7th one this school year alone, with 0 happening last year?
We can certainly look into the reasons as to why these individuals are leaving, if they filled out the Google Doc that, or Google form rather, that we sent them.
Okay, thank you.
I thought you was about to say something. Stuart came bold. I said, okay, Stuart. Any other questions on HR?
Yes.
Dr. Goodwin?
On number 6, 7, and 8, I like to just pull those until after exec session. I just have questions on process.
Okay. So have those as separate after exec. Any other questions?
A request more so. Can I get basically the budget for the academic coordinators, or how many FTEs is inside of that? Because I saw a job posting in an email earlier for 3 additional ones. So I'm just curious of how many does this department have?
That's the girl we just saw.
Yeah, we can get you that.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Got one
Seeing-
more.
Go ahead.
I want to pull number 12 too, because we just had this conversation last week based on the representation that was going out to individuals, and the letter that we had didn't match the language that we received last week. So at least pull it until after exec session to figure out what's really going on.
All right. Any other questions? Seeing none, may we have a vote?
President Smith,
Yes.
Ms. Wick,
Yes.
Dr. Goodwin,
Yes.
Dr. Bailey,
Yes.
Mr. Lacy,
Yes.
Mr. Walker,
Yes.
Ms. Reinhardt.
Yes.
7 yeses.
Next recommendation?
I recommend approval of the following contracts.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and second. Any questions?
I just wanted to request that the question last week on handshake, that be answered publicly on, again, how beneficial this contract is to us, if all.
You give me one moment to pull up the information that I gathered for you. Okay, so I shared a document with everyone, and I won't read through the entire document. However, Handshake is a talent engagement platform similar to social media. It allows DPS to connect directly with college students and alumni. We use this site to increase brand visibility among college students and to source candidates directly. The purchasing agreement includes active support from a Handshake brand manager and a campaign assistant. Additionally, most college fairs require us to use Handshake to utilize Handshake to sign up for their on-campus events. This allows the university the opportunity to track employment of their alumni, and also provided a singular data sheet from the past year. We were not able to pull up the exact same document. However, in an email that I sent today, there is a breakdown of how Handshake has impacted hiring over the years.
Thank you. I do want to note that this has, I mean, the rates on here are low. So Dr. Lawrence, I'm just asking that our new HR individual really look at this product over the next year to see if it is beneficial to us and what we're putting into it. Because, I mean, everything on here, if you equated it to a A through F scale, is an F or below on percentage of conversion rate. And that's not necessarily a high investment of actually getting people. So I'm just asking that before this comes up again next year, that we actually look at how many are, if it's really worth it at this point of conversion to actual employees for us.
Sure.
If I may, I'd like to add some anecdotal data to this conversation. I have 2 kids in college who are working their way through college. And their ability to find employment, I have seen Handshake be a major part of that. There are 2 different schools. One is a public school, one is a private school. And through one of them, the only way that they can look for outside employment while working is through Handshake. So it's a major part of universities. I've been familiar with this program for a couple of years. It wasn't until I actually saw the other side of it that I saw the efficacy and how big it is in the college area, part of recruiting and finding employment either during college or after college.
Appreciate that, but our data still shows that it's 41% rate here, and that's super low. So it may be good for other fields, but it doesn't appear on the data that they have put forward that is yielding kind of what we're putting into it. And if it's not, there may be another product out there that does it. So I think for us, we still run at about a 30 to 20% rate of not filling our teacher roles. And if there is something better, this may be the best thing that is out there, but if there is something better, then they deserve a chance to at least look at it, because you have a year left with a product that it looks like we've had this for about 5 years now. Is that correct?
Yes.
So yeah, 41%, and even seeing that the highest was, I don't even know if the highest rate was 57% of open rates here. It just, our industry, it may not be the best product.
All right. Any other questions? Appreciate you, Dr. Jones. Any questions on contracts?
Yes. Can I just have more information on the Solution Tree professional development?
Solution Tree Coaching Development, that's embedded coaching for our professional learning communities, which we started this year. And so Solution Tree will be here to work through PLCs in the buildings.
Can I get a copy of that agreement? That $117,000 is kind of high for 4 months worth of work.
Sure.
Any other questions? Seeing none, may we have a vote?
President Smith,
Yes.
Ms. Wick,
Yes.
Dr. Goodwin,
Yes.
Dr. Bailey,
Yes.
Mr. Lacy,
Yes.
Mr. Walker,
Yes.
Ms. Reinhardt.
Yes.
7 yeses.
Recommend approval of the following consultants.
So moved. Second.
Been moved and second. Any questions?
Yes.
Dr.
Follow,
Goodwin?
just a follow-up from last week on some of the proof of the work of the equity consultant. Didn't receive it via email, so seeing, did we get that?
Dr. Aguirre is not a clinical practitioner, so she's not worked in a school building. She's just done consulting work.
So does she have anything tangible of what we're trying to invest in? Or are we just taking a shot and a chance on her?
Yeah, her scholarship is in that space.
What do you mean?
That's what her doctoral work is in, equity and culturally responsive teaching and leading.
Okay, I just want to make sure. So there's no actual, like, she hasn't worked anywhere else as this type of consultant. We're just going to be the first ones?
No, this is not going to be the first one. She's worked all over the county in that space.
Okay, so in that work, is there anything that showed, like, it improved their investment in equity? There was any change in their investment? Or did it do anything for them, or did they just stay stagnant?
No, we don't. We typically, and we can answer their surveys about how people felt about it, but I don't, in that space, you don't go in and measure in that space. It typically doesn't work that way.
Okay. I'd like to vote on that one separate.
All right, any other questions? Seeing none, we can first have the vote on, since it's just two, this one on Amplify.
Okay. President Smith,
Yes.
Ms. Wick,
Yes.
Dr. Goodwin,
Yes.
Dr. Bailey,
Yes.
Mr. Lacy,
Yes.
Mr. Walker,
Yes.
Ms. Reinhardt.
Yes.
7 yeses.
All right, now on the other consultant contract.
Okay. President Smith,
Yes.
Ms. Wick,
Yes.
Dr. Goodwin,
No.
Dr. Bailey,
Yes.
Mr. Lacy,
Yes.
Mr. Walker,
Yes.
Ms. Reinhardt.
Yes.
6 yeses, 1 no.
And my final recommendation, I recommend approval of the following resolution: Central Midwest Regional Council of Carpenters, the contract.
So moved.
Second.
Any question on the motion? Seeing none, may we have a vote?
President Smith,
Yes.
Ms. Wick,
Yes.
Dr. Goodwin,
Yes.
Dr. Bailey,
Yes.
Mr. Lacy,
Yes.
Mr. Walker,
Yes.
Ms. Reinhardt.
Yes.
7 yeses.
President Smith, that concludes my recommendations.
Thank you, sir. Madam Treasurer, your recommendations, please, ma'am.
I recommend the approval of the following temporary appropriation measures for fiscal year 2025 as reviewed last week.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and second. Any questions?
I did have one. And so the principal fund, I'm back on this again. So we provide basically out of general fund, the principal fund budget is $800,000.
Not out of general fund, it's
Okay.
separate.
But this is what goes into that fund.
Yes.
Okay. How did it increase last year and the year before to 800,000 when 3 years before it was only 691? What's the need for the 800,000?
Go ahead.
Basically, Principals Fund, it's what principals raise money, so it's fundraisers and stuff. So it's $800,000, but unless a building raises money, we will not spend it. So we are assuming that the building will raise more money. If they cannot raise $800,000, let's say they only raise 500, then they can only spend $500,000 out of it.
Okay, so can we appropriate that somewhere else? How often do principals not raise money? I mean, some buildings, one building has, I believe, an initial report, like expenditures was like $30,000.
These are appropriations only, so, we cannot move it, like, it's not like, it's real money. Until the principal has the money in their pockets, they cannot spend it. It's not money we can budget somewhere else.
We are just estimating. We estimated the resources.
I get
We
that.
are thinking we're going to get that much, but we appropriate that, and if we don't get that estimated, they cannot spend what we appropriate.
So where does this money come from that's being appropriated?
The second thing Madam Treasurer will ask you to approve is the Certificate of Estimated Resources. So these are the estimated receipts. So the assumption is, okay, they'll raise the money, it could be a fundraiser, could be vending machine, something like that, or they might get a donation or something. So they'll raise that money, which would be estimated receipts, and then they will be able to spend it. The building will be able to spend it on whatever the principal wants. It's not controlled by the Treasury, it's just the building principals.
Okay. Okay, that's all I have on that one. My next question would be on the student wellness account. I see over the last year, we haven't put anything in that. Was that a special fund?
It was a grant. The state gave us a grant, and now we're getting the money with the general fund in state foundation. So the monies are going in the general fund this year. It started last year and this year. It's in the general fund now.
Okay, and then my last question would be on the career development. There's nothing in that fund this year, but it was for the last 4 years. So has that money not been used in the past?
Is that fund 461?
Yes, 461.
Okay, we looked at it. We did not get a grant. It's a grant base. It's a state grant. Anything that has 400 is a state grant. We did not get any money. If we are going to get money, we'll come to you and ask you to appropriate that money. But right now, we're not expecting anything.
Okay, that's all my questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions? Seeing none?
Oh,
Go ahead.
Can I amend that initial motion to include item A through E?
Kind of would like to look at them, because last time we missed something.
Not on her side, though.
Would have to go to whoever made the motion?
I don't know what you're asking.
So I was asking if we can just take item A through E together.
Oh.
As a consent agenda, basically.
That's fine with me.
Mhm. Any other questions? Seeing none, may we have a vote?
Okay. President Smith,
Yes?
Ms. Wick,
Yes.
Dr. Goodwin,
Yes.
Dr. Bailey,
Yes.
Mr. Lacy,
Yes.
Mr. Walker,
Yes.
Ms. Reinhardt.
Yes.
7 yeses.
Your next recommendation, Madam Treasurer?
Next one is item F, monthly financial for May. I recommend the approval for
Motion
that.
to approve.
Second.
It's been moved and second. Any questions? Seeing none, may we have a vote?
President Smith,
Yes?
Ms. Wick,
Yes.
Dr. Goodwin,
Yes.
Dr. Bailey,
Yes.
Mr. Lacy,
Yes.
Mr. Walker,
Yes.
Ms. Reinhardt.
Yes.
7 yeses.
Next recommendation?
Okay. I recommend the approval of minutes as reviewed last week.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and second. Have any questions?
Can we take item G through J together?
Okay. G to J.
I mean, that's. But that can still be discussed in the same time that we're discussing, right? Even if we take them all together.
You can, but it's up to whoever made the motion. Huh? Any other questions on the motion? Seeing none, may we have a vote?
So that will be,
No, we're just doing this one.
Just item G.
Just G.
Try to
Just
get you
G.
through.
okay. Okay. Okay, President Smith,
Yes.
Ms. Wick,
Yes.
Dr. Goodwin,
Yes.
Dr. Bailey,
Yes.
Mr. Lacy,
Yes.
Mr. Walker,
Yes.
Ms. Reinhardt.
Yes.
7 yeses.
Next recommendation?
Item H, I recommend the approval of the following donations for June 18.
So moved.
I'll second it. Any questions on the motion? As always, want to say thank you to those that donated to the district, and we'll be sure that a thank you will be sent to you after the vote. May we have a vote?
President Smith,
Yes.
Ms. Wick,
Yes.
Dr. Goodwin,
Yes.
Dr. Bailey,
Yes.
Mr. Lacy,
Yes.
Mr. Walker,
Yes.
Ms. Reinhardt.
Yes.
7 yeses.
Next recommendation?
I recommend the approval of the following purchase requisitions as reviewed last week.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and second. Any questions? Mr. Walker, did you have a question? You had.
I tried to get us through. Anybody made comments on those ones. We could have did them all together. That's my comments.
You threw her off the rhythm. You threw off her rhythm. Any other comments, questions? Seeing none, may we have a vote?
President Smith,
Yes.
Ms. Wick,
Yes.
Dr. Goodwin,
Yes.
Dr. Bailey,
Yes.
Mr. Lacy,
Yes.
Mr. Walker,
Yes.
Ms. Reinhardt.
Yes.
7 yeses.
Your next recommendation, Madam Treasurer?
I recommend the approval of the following then and now as reviewed last week.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and second. Any questions? Seeing none, may we have a vote?
President Smith,
Yes.
Ms. Wick,
Yes.
Dr. Goodwin,
Yes.
Dr. Bailey,
Yes.
Mr. Lacy,
Yes.
Mr. Walker,
Yes.
and Ms. Reinhardt.
Yes.
7 yeses.
We
This
could have did
concludes
them
your
all together.
recommendations, Madam Treasurer?
Yes.
Thank you, Madam Treasurer. I appreciate you.
We could have did
Thank
them
you.
all together. I just want to point that out there.
Okay.
You messed up the rhythm, man. You messed up her rhythm. She didn't even get to do her spiel. Okay? If you could refresh. Get Al Gore's internet to work. All right. Is everyone refreshed? So, we move over to Dr. Jones.
Thank you, Board President. I recommend approval of the following 48-hour waiver for Human Resources Business Manager recommendations.
So move.
It's been moved. I'll second it. Moved and second. Any questions? Seeing none, may we have a vote?
President Smith,
Yes.
Ms. Wick,
Yes.
Dr. Goodwin,
Yes.
Dr. Bailey,
Yes.
Mr. Lacy,
Yes.
Mr. Walker,
Yes.
Ms. Reinhardt.
Yes.
7 yeses.
Next, I recommend ratification of Section 6B, Human Resources Business Managers recommendations.
So move.
Second.
It's been moved and second. Any questions?
I'd like to pull number 4 until after executive session.
All right. So, we have any other questions?
I just want to comment and show appreciation to Dr. Jones, Chief Jones and her team, really for pulling this together with athletics. Really excited for this group of individuals that'll be coming into the district, especially Brandon McKinley, great football player, NFL, so glad to have him on the DPS team, potentially, depending on how this board votes.
Any other questions? Shouting out people that ain't go to DP.
Hey, I will circle back again to reiterate, to look into the flag football coaches of last season getting some type of payment type thing.
Yes, sir. May we have a vote?
President Smith,
Yes.
Ms. Wick,
Yes.
Dr. Goodwin,
Yes.
Dr. Bailey,
Yes.
Mr. Lacy,
Yes.
Mr. Walker,
Yes.
Ms. Reinhardt.
Yes.
7 yeses.
That concludes your recommendations. I guess it does, Dr. Jones. Okay. Next, I will send it down to Dr. Cassandra Goodwin, policy second reading.
1 second. For the one I pulled, though, I do want to invite Chief Jones in the exec session because I have questions on that one.
All right.
In so much as the Board of Education is committed to the continuing updating of its policies, rules, and regulations manual, and the committee, which was appointed, has been working towards that goal. The following is brought at this time for a second reading in compliance with Board File G, C, B, E, professional staff vacations and holidays, administrators and supervisors. G, D, B, E, support staff vacations and holidays. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Dane City Schools District, Montgomery County, Ohio, hereby accepts and adopts the following policies that have been codified for inclusion in the Handbook of Policies, Rules, and Regulations. I move that we adopt policies, the two I just read. Is there a second?
Second.
Any questions on the motion? Seeing none, Madam
Pres-
Treasurer, may we have a vote?
President Smith,
Yes.
Ms. Wick,
Yes.
Dr. Goodwin,
Yes.
Dr. Bailey,
Yes.
Mr. Lacy,
Yes.
Mr. Walker,
Yes.
and Ms. Reinhardt.
Yes.
7 yeses.
I'll keep it over there with Dr. Goodwin. Any other new business, ma'am?
New business. I'm gonna save my comments till after exec session.
Okay. I'll send it down to Ms. Reiner.
A couple items to update is a couple days ago, the Ohio School Board Association had our first meeting to establish the annual Federal Legislative Advocacy Group. This is the annual trip that the track I take out to DC every year to lobby for public education at the federal level. It's an amazing opportunity, and I'm so grateful to represent the districts within the 10th Congressional District, not just Dayton Public Schools, but I'm the delegate for this entire congressional district. Really grateful for that opportunity. That will be in September, and I will update the board after that. As always, we talk about things like Title IV, funding for Individuals with Disabilities in Education Act. We talk about the teacher pipeline, recruiting and retaining high-quality teachers. A lot of our conversations about funding that we have here are relevant at the statewide level, but there's a lot of funding that happens at the federal level, and that's where I have the really great conversations with our legislators in DC. So I'm looking forward to that. A couple pieces of legislation in the State House that I would like to flag for people to have on their radars. First of all, there have been 2 hearings in committee for House Bill 445. They had the introductory committee testimony, and then they had proponent testimony. We are still waiting on opponent testimony. This is the legislation that is in regards to release time for religious instruction. There's a lot of concerns about this piece of legislation, about the time that it will take students out of for the building. There's the release time for religious instruction. They don't want to take students away from any core instructional time. I would argue that every single minute in every single classroom is important, whether it's the core lessons or not. There are also some real concerns about student safety when students are taken off campus for something else. Are there background checks for people who are going to be instructing our students off campus? Are we liable if something happens to these students off campus? How can teachers and parents know that the people who our students are in custody of actually have qualifications, that they've passed back, have they even gone through background checks, the transportation to and from? There are just a lot of real concerns about what this piece of legislation would mean. House Bill 408 was introduced. It allows a meal to each child who requests one in the entire state of Ohio, which I think is a really wonderful thing. Kids are mandated to be in schools every single day during the school year, and we actually ought to be feeding them. Kids in Dayton are lucky because they have access to free and reduced lunch. Every single child in Dayton has access to lunch. Not every district is like that, and families' abilities to pay for school lunches varies widely. I think that I'm in support of any legislation that just feeds kids when they're in schools. House Bill 407 provides needed oversights to non-public schools that accept vouchers. There's a lot that I could say about that I will save for another time. And House Bill 178 passed the House. This is the Crown Act. And this is where I want to shout out Representative Juanita Brent. She is one of the people in the House that I really, really admire. She is incredibly active in her community and is a really great example for the type of legislator that we should have in the State House. She championed this, and this would prevent any discrimination based on hairstyles. And so I really, really am in strong support of this, and I'm grateful that the House passed it. And that is all I have as updates. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll move it right down the line to Mr. Walker.
I'll save mine.
What, Mr. Walker?
I could say them.
Doom, 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 doom. Mr. Lacy.
You won't have the same great audience after. We met, the Finance Committee met last Thursday and went over the financial statements of operation, and financial position, and found them to be in good order. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mr. Lacy. Mr. Walker?
Thank you. So I just want to circle back on the Stivers football conversation just to give some insight. So middle school students, if a team does not exist at their building, then they can play at another middle school. When it gets to high school level, only non-enrolled students can go to another school if their assigned school doesn't offer that sport. So with Stivers, after our middle schools are done playing at E.J. Brown, Waldman, or something like that, then they no longer get to play football, and they're just in high school trying to figure out what other sport can they become active in. With putting the football program at Stivers, I think it allows for students who may want to go to Stivers but don't audition for Stivers because of the simple fact they don't offer that specific sport that they may want to play. Also, when we look at students who may come from the out of district into the district at that 10% cap, those students may be interested in that sport as well, but that sport is not one that is offered. In my mind and eyes, really, I look at it as an opportunity for us to really grow our district and provide these opportunities across the district and not just minimize one specific sport out of one building, because then it takes away from the overall growth of that child. As well as when we look at Stivers, and to be perfectly honest, Belmont is a 7 through 12 building that has 1,068 students. Stivers is a 7 through 12 building that has 708. So these two buildings are 7 through 12, and their enrollments do not match. So we miss out on a lot of students who may want to go to a building like Stivers, but they cannot. So I just wanted to clear that as well, because I am one that's looking forward to if the club will be the first thing offered for this sport at Stivers. I'm looking forward to that because it gives those students hope of what's to come later. I'm interested in parent involvement and how that will grow Stivers as well, outside of the actual academics and the arts that is focused at that building. But also keeping in mind of what's to offer at our other Dayton public schools as well, because we do know that every student may not want to go to Stivers, but also we have great opportunities at all of our buildings. And I think that's where I'm in support of the program being at Stivers going forward. Thank you.
Okay. I'll send it now over to Dr. Bailey. Yeah, I don't have anything today, but thank you. All right, thank you. Ms. Wick.
Thanks, everybody, for your great presentations. Thanks for your continued work. Everybody enjoy Juneteenth celebrations tomorrow. It's a great day. And yeah, I'm on the transportation kick, as all of it, if you've been listening to me a bit. In my position on the board, I sit as business advisory and business position, and our business community is speaking out loud about these opportunities that exist. And I know there's not one solution here, and yellow busing all of our kids is maybe not the solution, but I know that we have a new school year starting next year, so I'm really looking for all of the ideas. I know that we're talking about offering more programs in buildings so our high school kids stay in buildings. We're offering more sports at buildings so that we can keep our kids staying in buildings. And I really see all of us out here trying to build solutions around being better community partners and better offering better opportunities to our kids. So when I sit and speak about transportation, my number one priority is to protect our kids, the kids at Dayton Public Schools, because these are my kids. I had a conversation with Dr. Goodwine the other day about, as a parent, even if your kid messes up, you're still going to be that parent and you're going to back them up. And these are our kids. And while we have challenges at the bus hub, and the bus hub represents a large opportunity for our community, I sit in a position to do what's right by and for our children first. So I wanted to make that clear to the community, but I also want to make it clear too that our business partners are recognizing that we have some gaps, and I want to do what we can as a community to make that better. So I appreciate all of you indulging me in these ideas and bringing more ideas to the solutions, because one of my favorite words that Dr. Lawrence uses is longitudinal. And because the work that we do today is, and always is, longitudinal. We're always moving towards solution, and there's not one solution today that we develop that is going to work forever tomorrow. So I continue to appreciate all of you and the solutions that you bring, and our community partners and the solutions that they bring. So yes, thank you. That's it.
Madam Treasurer?
Yeah. We were very, very happy last year and prior to last year to receive this outstanding award from the Auditor of State. Now we are more delighted to receive this award again and again. This is indeed a recognition and acknowledgement from the Auditor of State to the work of the Treasurer's Office team is accomplishing. This achievement is the result of the hard work, dedication, and teamwork that our office put in. This would not have been possible without the excellent work of my team. I am blessed to have this outstanding team, and thank you, my team. We will keep on working very hard to continue this tradition of excellence going forward. Now, I would like to thank the Auditor of State for recognizing the excellent job that our office is performing. I also would like to thank the board, the superintendent, and the district for their support. Thank you. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Madam Treasurer. And once again, I want to congratulate you for the work that you do, and also congratulate your team. Dr. Lawrence.
Thanks again to Omega for coming. Dr. Henso, thanks for flying up from Dallas. Welcome back, Judy Spurlock, and welcome back, Denise Gum. It's rough out here last week without you. Latoya, you see what happens on the second and third Tuesday. It's good to see you. And Madam Treasurer, I saw you folks on 4 today, working with grants, and I saw them on 3 the day before with the curriculum team. So I really appreciate the interactive way in which your team is working with the academics. You all are on fire.
Thank you.
And to my team, deuces after this.
All right. Thought you was gone from me, Dr. Jones. Do you have any comments, Dr. Jones? I appreciate you, Dr. Jones. I want to thank everybody that came out. Want everybody to enjoy their time tomorrow. They get to enjoy their time. Since my good friends from the Hope Center are here, I will say I am dismayed that I have to celebrate Juneteenth tomorrow and not be free from my little one, since the center's closed down tomorrow. So I feel a little non-Juneteenth-ish on that note. But I really do want people to really look into what the holiday means as we celebrate culture and we talk about these things. So really look into that piece. I appreciate Ms. Joni Watson coming out and speaking. I do think there's a lot of things. I know Mr. Walker shared some of those pieces. And I've seen some of those conversations. I think it's a conversation that is good on all sides to have. Your concerns are definitely valid. And I also want to lift up when we were in school, I hate saying the name of this school because one of my board members went there, but they were also an art school and they had a really, really good football program at that time. You don't have to say nothing, Ms. Goins. I know you was over there. But so I think these things are doable. I think it's one of those things to look into, and I think it's not a zero-sum game. And so I'm really glad you came out to share that. Say what? What? I don't think it's Colonel White. It was Colonel White. But I think it's good to have these conversations, and I think we move forward with conversations. I want to thank once again the transportation team and everybody that talked about the plans moving forward. And once again, I want to lift that up because there has been major, major, major improvements with transportation. I know we've talked a little bit about some of those high school pieces, but I know that creates a different conversation, and it's a different conversation around, are we getting kids to school? And it's more so a conversation of then equity and fairness. And I don't want us to jump right and move into things just because certain segments of the community are saying they want to see something different. I think if you want to see something different, then you have to sit down at the table and become a partner and not tell the district we need to solve an issue. Because I think in those situations, you end up seeing what we've had in the past. And it's one of the reasons we went away from having the Patterson Career Center downtown, is that people didn't want kids at 3rd and Main. And that is at that time, we had to close that school that for years had operated downtown, sent kids to work during the co-op seasons, and once that population changed in color and where they came from, there was a big push to shut down Patterson, and that happened. And then we had to restart the Career Tech program years later with Ponens, and we still haven't had some of the recovery and gains that we've had, and you lose a segment of there. So I really want everybody, when we talk about these things, I understand it. I see now I can go down the hub, and it's summertime, and there's still some of the same behaviors going on. So I think it really requires a lot of conversations around how do we as a whole create safety, and how do we create things for children to do. I think that is a big thing. How do you create things for children to do? And I'm willing to have those conversations with any and everybody, and I think that that's where we have to be as a district, is keep moving forward, and how do we make those conversations about what is best for our children? And then secondly, how do people from outside of our community play a part of that role of doing what's best for our kids? So appreciate all the work here, and you guys get to get out of here 20 minutes later than I thought it would be. But let the record show that the Board of Education of the Dayton City School District has just completed oh, no, not completed it. I said my wrong thing, Mr. Lacy. You let me do it, too. Pursuant to Section 121.22G2 of the Ohio Revised Code, I move that this board go into executive session. This meeting is being held to consider the appointment, employment, and dismissal of a public employee, as well as to confer with our attorneys around pending or imminent legal action, court action. Do I have a second?
Second.
It's been second. Do I have any questions? Seeing none, may we have a vote?
President Smith,
Yes.
Ms. Wick,
Yes.
Dr. Goodwin,
Yes.
Dr. Bailey,
Yes.
Mr. Lacy,
Yes.
Mr. Walker,
Yes.
Ms. Reinhardt.
Yes.
7 yeses.
All right, thank you.